but for you, I did.
Oh, okay.
Everyone has a unique gift, and Mike, the creator of the 1NELife podcast, believes most people don't know how to use their gifts or what they are. Mike wants you to see things from a different perspective and be true to yourself. The 1NELife podcast unites the world through art, fashion, music, and film. It inspires, motivates, and creates positive energy, love, and compassion to all communities and creates an equal playing field for all. On the 1NELife podcast, they cover topics like building relationships, overcoming adversity, habits of healthy people, and much, much more. We only have one life to live. Be yourself and live your truth. Add the 1NELife podcast to your playlist. That's the number 1NELife. Available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and your favorite podcast platform.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the 1NELife podcast. I am Mike MIC Reed, where we're going to talk about positive psychology while taking care of our well-being. And telling your story, because everyone has a story and everybody's story is amazing. So in studio today, we have Kate from the nonprofit foundation Cherished LA, where she is focused on breaking the chains of human trafficking and sexual exploitation. How you doing today?
I'm good.
That's good. It's good seeing you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, and your holidays are going great?
Yeah, really good. It's been good, you know, people fighting sickness, but other than that.
It is a lot of sickness going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Tanya's not here today. She's feeling sick and ill, but, you know, she's here in spirit.
Yeah, we miss her.
Yeah, I miss her, you know. But I was just telling you a minute ago, I normally don't do talking points, but for you, I got a lot of talking points here. But that's because I'm kind of, I don't want to say familiar with human trafficking, but I'm familiar with the whole LA underground world, you know, that whole scene. I know how crazy it can be. So it kind of brought back, as I was reading your book, Exposed here, because you do have a book, and it brought back memories. And a lot of things I can relate to. But, you know, before I get into what I want to know, I want to just kind of know your backstory.
Well, I just want to say too that I'm happy to hear that it brought up memories for you because, you know, we do all have a story,
right? And
I hope, like, not every girl who has been trafficked will connect with every single aspect of my story, nor do I have the same as hers. But there are so many pieces that are similar that even like you and I can connect through some of this story, you know, things that we've been through.
Absolutely.
That was my hope for that. So I grew up in the South. I grew up in Georgia. And then I moved up to North Carolina and went to high school up there, went to beauty school, had dreams of coming to LA, felt like this is where I belonged. And it was always felt like it was pulling me. So I wanted to be a singer at the time. I wanted to be a lead singer. So through the salon that I worked at, I met someone who was looking for a lead singer for their band, and I left doing hair to go on the road as a lead singer for a while, up and down the East Coast, and I was partying a lot, and just I could tell I was slowly, you know, going down that vortex, getting away from where I wanted to be, and so I thought I've just got to stop and just get over there, get to LA somehow and start pursuing my dreams, you know, having that, like, when I get there, it's going to work out. Right. It'll all come true for me. And so, yeah, that's where it all changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your book, Exposed, why?
I wanted to tell my story for myself. I wanted to never forget all of the things, not that I could. They were always in my body, holding all of that trauma and memory, but I needed a way to kind of like ask people to be my witness to something that I had been through. And also it was a way to get my story out for other survivors to know that they may not be ready to, one, even recognize that they're trafficked, or they may never want anyone to know that part of their story. There's a lot of shame surrounding that. So I wanted to be the voice for those who weren't ready to talk, but needed someone to be their witness to their story.
Okay. So speaking of that, because I know there's a lot of shame. I can imagine. I can't say I know. But when do you say something, or how do you even like say something when you're in there?
And exactly.
Like in that world.
Like just when I'm sitting with the survivor, you mean? Or?
No, not you sitting with the survivor, but like when someone's in that world and they want to get out, but they don't know how. Like, because I know when someone, whether it's sex trafficking, a drug addict, or whatever, we want to say ask for help, or just say something if you feel uncomfortable in a certain situation, right? Like when do you say something, or how do you say something?
If I see a situation that I'm curious about, and I think there could be, I can kind of feel it. If I'm in the presence of something like that going on, then I might find a way to start to talk about my story a little bit, or even to say, what I do now, running Cherished. That sort of opens the door. I'm never going to assume that's what's happening to someone, but if I am curious about that, I might find a way to let them know my part of my story and then see how they respond. If there's an invitation for me to have more of a conversation, then I would go there, but I think it's really important to understand, even talking about this for somebody can be even more exploitive, like asking them to exploit themselves, or they can feel exploited if I start to dig in or ask too many questions, and I think it's really important that people feel safe,
right,
and that they feel like you're somebody they want to talk to, so just kind of laying that groundwork, sort of feeling things out. I haven't ever had anyone, once they know more of my story, go, oh, great, and then want to run away from it. Usually they want to talk more. They want to ask more questions and sort of find out, where they can have that conversation. Like, where do we connect? Where can I, oh, I've been through something similar. And then they'll start to tell me more about that.
So if a girl is in a situation where she's in this world, and I'm pretty sure that most of them want to get out after a certain point, right? She for her to ask for help on how to get out, or I need help to get out, she has to then feel safe with whoever she's going to approach or talk to. So it's not about just picking up a phone, calling a hotline, or saying, hey, I need help. Like, it's deeper than that.
Not usually. I mean, I'm not going to say those don't happen. Of course, the hotlines are there for a reason. People do call them, but I find that sometimes we get calls from people, like hotline kind of calls, are from family members or someone other than the actual victim.
Right.
And in that case, we try to get what information we can, but the bottom line is, does she want help? And if she wants help, she needs to make the phone call. Right. If it's not safe for her to, we always want to find a way for her to communicate with us without, we have to say that, like, is this a good time to talk?
Without putting herself in danger.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Yes.
Okay.
So when she has to feel safe, and she can't put herself in danger, obviously, if she wants to get out. 'Cause I think I was reading somewhere in your book where you was kind of talking about that, about they have to, be safe, and never want to put themselves in a situation where.
Yeah. I always want to be aware that there's a possibility of someone listening in, watching. Even if we're out in public, there could be somebody as there's different situations of the type of work. I mean, the work is the same, but I mean, there's different scenarios. So like if she's working street work, or, if she has, or even if she's not, if she has a pimp that's boyfriend, whoever he is, that's nearby, she's not going to feel free to talk, or she's going to get in trouble for talking. And so we want to, I always want to be aware of the whole surroundings when I'm having a conversation with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So, in this world, like I was telling you earlier, because I grew up in LA, and I grew up in the music industry. But prior to that, I grew up in a gang-related neighborhood, and I sold drugs, and so I saw a lot of things, and I got caught into that world because I needed to get out, so I needed to do what I needed to do, kind of like your story, like you said you needed to do what you needed to do with the guy from the Italian restaurant, about selling your car. But he wanted you to go out on a date with him first, to have dinner, rather. And so you was like, okay, if I play my cards right, I can get what I want. But at the same time, he's being manipulative and he's going to get what he's want. And that's where the battle plays, right?
Yeah.
Like now it's a battle about who's the strongest, who's gonna
Yep.
survive this.
Yeah.
And that's
Who's
where you
going
get
to
caught
outwit
up.
the other one?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean that's where I said I can kind of relate because I was in, like I said, in that drug world, and I was obviously working for somebody. I wasn't a kingpin, but but I eventually got out, and I was able to just walk away from it. But I know that's different from your world and what these girls are going through.
Yeah.
But that can be the challenging part.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of, trauma even in that, what you're talking about, that lifestyle and, having to do the things you got to do,
Right.
to make it work. So,
Right. I mean, yeah, it was just survival for me. Like I knew I didn't want to be in that world no more. Like, because I've been on my own since I was 14. So I had to make money, and I obviously did it at a young age. I made good money, but the world itself, I didn't care for.
Yeah.
And it only honestly took me one time to get pulled over that I saw my life flash in front of me. And I knew in that moment I was going to jail for a long time. But by the grace of God, I didn't.
yeah.
Like, the only way I'm here right now and I didn't go to jail, because I had like an ounce of cocaine on me, a gun that obviously wasn't registered to me. But the police didn't see that. They searched my car and they didn't see it.
Wow.
Like that's, when I think about that, and I tell this story a lot, it's crazy how they missed that.
Yeah.
And they searched my car twice.
Yeah.
That was all God right there. And I literally, as I was sitting on the curb, just thinking, I had my cousin with me. I was like, dude, we're going to jail. He was like, are you? I was like, yeah, we're going to jail. I said, for real. I said, I'm sorry, but we're going to jail. But as I was sitting there saying that, and they couldn't see it, and I'm looking at them like, it's right there. They did not see it.
That's amazing.
I took that as a sign, and I ran with that sign. And ever since then, every time, that's why I'm big on signs right now. Like when I see a sign about something, I take it, and I believe it.
Yeah.
Like I turned my car around, and I went home, and I never went back.
Yeah. Wow.
I told my guy, I said, hey, I'm done.
That's great.
Like, I'm done. I don't care what happens.
Yeah.
I don't care how much money I owe you. I'm done. I was just about to spend the rest of my life in prison. I said, I'm not doing this no more.
Right.
For some reason, I know God, but yeah, I was like, I'm not doing this no more.
Yeah.
And I didn't. Never, ever, ever again did I ever go back.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me think about my when I got arrested. They asked me are there any drugs in the car, and probably same thing. I could have hidden it. I could have said no because they were well hidden. But I think now that you say that, I've never thought this. I think I wanted them to find them.
Mm-hmm.
I was done. I was so tired of the life. I wanted to get arrested. I didn't want to get arrested, obviously.
Right.
But I mean, I wanted somebody to get me out.
That was your way out.
Yeah.
So what was that? Because that's a question I want to ask you. Because I know throughout your years, I'm pretty sure in your mind, like all of us, when we are living a life that we don't want, we be like, okay, I'm done. But things never work out that. Was that the pivotal moment that just completely was like, you know what, I'm done?
Yeah,
like,
I think
worked?
It was like a couple of things that happened kind of at the same time, and that was part of it. But I had this encounter with God. I feel like in my room, I was renting a room in North Hollywood, and I had been working at the clubs, for a decade, and with clients outside of the club and all of that. And I just remember like God having this moment, this God moment, like where I felt like he showed me how he saw me. And when I had that, it just like, my knees buckled. I just wept because I had felt so dirty and felt so ashamed and like I'll never be lovable or worthy or whatever, And when I had that moment, I just remember really crying out. And getting arrested was a chance for me to actually get sober and not have any substance and just, really have some time to have to sit with my thoughts. And so I was in Sybil Brand, a women's correctional facility. So being in there and then getting out. So what happened after getting out of there is being broke. I had nowhere to go or no way. I didn't know what to do. So I was back to the club to make that last little bit of money, like still telling myself I have to do this because I have nothing else. Right. And but that was the moment when I walked into the club that it all looked different. It was all different for me. It was like my eyes had been open. I had been sober now, and I had cried out to God, and so now walking back into that space, it was completely different, and I knew I couldn't stay.
So your perspective completely changed.
Yeah.
Compared to the first time when you first got out here and Steve, right?
Yeah.
Sold you and you had to do these things for money.
Yeah.
Now this time, is it a whole different perspective?
Yeah. Or in some ways it was going back to that because even the first time there was definitely nothing glamorous or exciting. It was just survival. Like I was scared to death and thought, well, maybe that's the life out here. People do a lot more to get where they need to go, and I'll have to do that to survive. But after all those years, that moment, stepping back into it, was like remembering who I was, that I had forgotten. I had forgotten about, my real dreams, and now they've kind of changed. They weren't the same dreams, but I had forgotten who I was and who I needed to be, and my morals, and had sort of fallen into what everyone else was saying, whatever they said about me. That's who I was. I had gotten so used to becoming someone else's, a projection of whatever they needed for me to be, that I had forgotten who I was.
Right. So, so hold that thought, because I want to go deeper into that, because that you talk about that in chapter 3. Mm-hmm. See, I read your book. Mm-hmm. But I want to go back to the stigma of what people think surviving in LA and Hollywood is, because I think that's a big stigma where a lot of people, they want to come out here, they want to be in entertainment. One is so overrated. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so overrated. And I just watched a video of Tahaja P. Mm-hmm. Right? You know what Tahaja P is, right? Mm-hmm. From Empire. Yeah. And all these other movies she did, all these other great movies she did. And yet she's still somewhat broke. Yeah. Like, it's great to have the fame and, entertainment. I grew up in entertainment, so it's nice, but at the same time, everybody wants to move out here and get into it. And that stigma of, I got to do this to survive, to be in it. And it's just far from the truth. Like, you don't have, and I don't want to minimize it, because I did things when I was younger to survive, to get out the neighborhood, right? I get that part. But at the same time, I guess because I didn't lose my vision. Maybe that's it. Mm-hmm. I was just listening to you talk, and you said you lost your vision of why you came out here. But it is easy to lose your vision when someone else is telling you who you are, what you need to be doing, because now you're believing their vision, right? Yeah. So I never had that. So I think for me, I've always kept my vision on what I want to do and how I want to get out. So I guess it was easier for me. Mm-hmm. So I never had someone telling me who I was and all that.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I thought I was keeping my sights on where I was going, but I got really lost in all of the mix of it, and with the clients and the pimps and the madams and the, and then to have little taste of it. Something I don't put in the book is there were several films that I did get to do. But even like with what I do talk about dancing at the Paramount Studios on that TV show, even that, like, there are little sprinkles to kind of keep you like, oh, this might work, this might happen, but then the drugs and everything else, just in order to get through another day, sucks you back in.
Right. Yeah, and it's that being, it's funny, your book is called Exposed, but Steve Harvey talks about this a lot, about exposed, but he's talking about it in a different way. Like when you're exposed to something, then you're going to do everything in your power to have that. Like if you like chocolate ice cream, right? But then all of a sudden I take it away from you. You're going to do everything in your power because you love chocolate ice cream. You're going to want it again. You're not just going to turn away from it. Like you're going to want it. So when you're exposed to like a certain lifestyle, the entertainment, the fame, and all this stuff that a lot of people out here in LA, that's what they do. Like you said, they sprinkle a little bit, they give you a taste of it, and it's like, wow, I want this. They invite you over to their mansions. They're, take you for a ride in their cars. They expose you to it all, and it's like, wow, I want this. But what's the price that you're gonna pay to get it?
Yeah.
And that's the key, and they don't talk about that.
At what cost?
At what cost? It's literally your life. Mm-hmm. It's like your life. It's not, oh, no, you got to work hard. You got to work all these hours. No, it's you're paying with your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have questions at the end of each chapter for like we're doing it as a group or for survivors reading this book or anyone. I've had friends who've never been in the life who've read this book and said the questions really prompted them to think deeper about their own story, but that's one of them. It's like, at what cost?
Yeah.
What does it cost you?
That is funny, yeah. And so just to touch back on what you were saying about your identity, because chapter 3, what's your name? Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I found this very interesting because I'm reading a book titled Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Mm-hmm. This book, and I've read a book similar to this called The Bradshaw. It's actually a book that my therapist gave me years ago. And it talks about family systems. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It talks about the we system and the I system. And I talk about this a lot because it's so true. Since you was born, everything is given to you. Your name is given to you. Your beliefs, your morals, everything is given to you. Mm-hmm. Most adults are still not living their true identity because they are who their environment told them they was. Mm-hmm. So until you break out of the we system, and that's what the we system is, it's whoever raised you, whether it's your mother, your dad, your uncles, your sister, your siblings, or even your neighborhood, you're part of their system. Mm-hmm. So until you break out of that and become the I system, that's when you live in your true identity. Mm-hmm. So you're most adults aren't living their true identity. They think they are because someone told them who they was. Yeah. But a lot of people don't know how to break out of that. Yeah. So it's very interesting that you wrote about that. So because you said in your book, for every club, and I think you said mostly every client, you had to change your name. You had to lose your true identity and become these other people to protect your identity. Mm-hmm. That was deep.
Or to escape my own identity, because like I do talk about my younger self, the dreamer, the one who, danced in the rain and loved so many innocent things. The dreamer, the one that wanted to come out here and have all of that. She was innocent, that younger part of me, but I was now in a different place and I couldn't allow that younger, innocent part of me to have be here, be a part of it. This world was dark and, and so I even kind of not that I'm a separate person. I'm not saying that. Right. I'm just saying there in memory, there are parts, our younger parts are in our memory. And that was something I needed to lock away and not entertain, so to speak, or, because that wasn't safe to do.
So my question to you now is, do you, looking at yourself now compared to the dreamer, do you think you're living your true identity now?
I think I'm closer. I think I am in a very important place in my life, doing something that I'm called to do. I feel like all the things I've been through, I'm not going to let them go to waste. That's why I wrote the book and why I've started Cherished. And I'm going to use everything, that I've learned and pass that on to someone else. But I think I'm still discovering parts of myself that may not have been allowed to be a part of me for whatever. Certain, people in my life still sort of putting that kind of, behave this way, as a Christian, behave this way, as a wife, as a mother, as a whatever, there's different, like, this is how you, someone's always showing you this is how to be. And I think I am discovering, like, my own, who I was created to be, and my own relationship with my Creator. And I'm not I talk in there about spiritual soup and how people want to make everything be okay. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, finding out, like, who I was created to be and what my purpose is. And so I feel like I'm walking in it. Yeah. I think I'm not done. I think I have a lot more to learn, a lot more to do.
Well, that's the perfect answer right there.
Yeah.
None of us, once we walk in on our true path, because I'm a true believer in, we're always born with a gift. And again, most adults just don't know how to find that gift, or they haven't found it yet. And it's never too late to find a gift. I think you finally found yours and your purpose, and you are walking in it. And it's not a destination. It's a journey.
Yeah.
So that's why you're not done.
Yeah.
And I'm a true believer in that.
Yeah.
So I love that answer.
Yeah.
But I know, and I asked you that because I know when you first came out here to LA, like, you had this dream and vision of who you thought you wanted to be. Mm-hmm. That's totally different than the woman you are now.
Yeah. Yeah, way different.
Way different. But that's why we go through all these things, right? And it's unfortunate, some of us have to go through, a lot more or whatever, but, we can't minimize that either. Like, I think you just said that, like, because it made you who you are. Even though we all have to go, and I've been through it. I mean, I've been through, I don't know if you know my story. My story is, kind of crazy. Watched my mother being murdered in front of me, all kind of stuff. So
Gosh.
we have to go through these things because it makes us who we are. I finally found my purpose. Even though being in entertainment for 35 years, I have fun. It gave me all the skills to do all this stuff, right? But I think that was just the purpose of that, is so I can now do my own thing and, have this show and tell other people's stories and, try to be inspiring to other people. It gave me those skills.
Yeah. That's
but
so
it made
awesome.
me who I am.
Yeah.
And I love the person I've become. Even though, in hindsight, or when you look back, like, oh, wow, that was horrible going through all this stuff, but it made me who I am.
Yeah.
It made me stronger.
Yeah.
And I think it did the same for you. I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I wouldn't wish that passed on anybody, as I'm sure you feel the same about yours. But at the same time, like, I'm not ashamed of it, and I feel like it needs to be told. And I feel it did make me who I am, and I do feel strong within that. Yeah.
I love the fact that what you just said, like, you're not ashamed of it, and nobody should be. Like, I'm not ashamed of the things that I've done or I've been through. I love talking. Ever since I started the show and telling my story, it's made me feel that much better. I know I have a friend that she's been through a lot in her life, and she doesn't like talking about it. And that's okay. you know, that's she's not ready, and I understand that. I wish she would, because she became a powerful woman. Like she's, you know, and I try to tell her this, you know, she's very successful now, and you know, and she did it all on her own. I mean, she had help from, you know, me and other people, but you know, she did it, she made it, right? But she don't like talking about her backstory, nothing like that. But you know, and that's okay. You know, I respect that, and I don't have a problem with it. I do like when people like yourself do tell their stories, because there are a lot of young women out there that need to hear these stories and need to hear that, you know, it's okay, and that they will be okay if they want to get out.
Yeah.
You know, there is people like yourself and like your foundation that are there for them. And it's never too late to ask for help or want to get out.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I always want, you know, survivors and people that I meet to, you know, get behind their story and get strong from it. But that's a long road.
It is.
And, you know, like letting them have their journey is so important.
Yeah.
And letting them get to it if they do. If they don't, you know, that's on them, and that's their story, you know. So always trying to like take a step back and go, this is theirs. They get to do what they want to with that. But I can see like, oh my gosh, this would be awesome if you know, like how many women you could help, or how many other or men you could help, you know, if you would tell your story, you know. And but we only get our story to choose that.
And that's the hard part, right? Because we care about people, and we're fixers. What someone told me I am. They said, Mike, you're a fixer. Like, because we want to help people, right? But the reality is, and I had to learn this, and I'm just learning this, is I have to let people walk their path and do it at their time.
Right.
Maybe it's not their time. And I know it's hard, because you see them going through what we went through, right? And it's like, dang, I don't want to see them suffer. I don't want to see them in that space no more. But we have to let them find their own way out and tell their story when it's ready.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, especially for me.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, it's really hard. And I think that's important for people to hear this, that you never know what part of someone's journey you're on with them. You never know what part of their journey you get to enter into. And it doesn't mean you're going to get to be there forever. It may be very short. It may be longer for some. But just really, I think, finding the value that you even get to be a part of their journey at all in any way. And knowing like that's it. That's enough. That's what you were supposed to contribute. And, you know, so I have to live there, because if someone comes to our program, you know, it's a 2-year program to come to our place and try to work on their healing. That's the first and most important thing that we want to help them with. And if they're not ready for that, or they're still, a lot of times, you know, they're longing for some of the things that are of the past and not ready to give it up, and may leave. And it can really break your heart. If you love someone and you want someone to do better and to get well or to get help, and they're not quite ready, you can't want it more than they do. You can't do it for them. And I think that, you know, a lot of times that's what I tell people that call on behalf of someone else is, you know, that's great that you're looking for resources for them. But at the end of the day, it has to be their decision to make that change. And we can't want it more than they do, but we can value and honor the moments that we get, whatever that is.
You know, I was watching a TV show a couple of years ago, and this stuck in my mind, because I tell us a lot. It was this firefighter sitting in the lobby of a rehab center, and the lady at the counter was like, "Are you still waiting?" He was like, "Yeah," and she was like, "You do know rehab is for people who want it, not for people who need it." Yeah. And that stuck with, when she said that, I was like, "Dang, that is so true." And it's for like all the resources. It's like they have to want it. Yeah. It's not, they need it, but that's not what the resources are there for.
Yeah. And in trafficking specifically, the chains are psychological. They're not on the outside. They're not like something you can physically take away from someone. It's psychological. You may physically unhandcuff them from a situation, but you are not going to unhandcuff or take away those chains that are keeping them trapped. And I think that's a lot of what my book I'm trying to make people understand is like what happens to us psychologically when we're in those places, and how before you know it, you've gone down so far. You've gone so far away from where you wanted to be.
And it's so easy to slip that far down. I think like a lot of people don't realize that. Like for someone that's never been in that world or that space, you're like, well, how did you even let that happen? Well, I mean, it's not like you asked for it. Like you came out here wanting to go for a dream. You only knew Steve.
Yeah.
And he was still using. You thought you had a place to stay, but you didn't.
Yep.
And just like that,
Yeah.
you were sold. And like, did you know at that moment, like you were sold? Did you
No.
know what was going on?
No, because I'd never imagined or heard of anything
Right.
like that happening. Oh, that wasn't the world I grew up in.
Right.
And I didn't know that would really happen to somebody. Kidnapping. We talked about kidnapping as a kid. Parents are always worried about that kind of thing, but never like being sold or what happens after the kidnapping, right?
But this wasn't even like a kidnapping where
It
someone
wasn't.
blindfolded
Yeah,
you,
no.
snatched you.
No.
This was like done so smoothly.
Yeah.
You went to a mansion. You was like, oh, I have a place to stay. Maybe,
Yeah.
he knows somebody that, like, it was a dream.
Yeah, I thought it was a next connection.
Yeah.
I was still really sad because I had come to be with my friend,
Right.
and I now am being let out at a stranger's house. But so I knew that this was not good. I cried the whole way over there. I was devastated that he was taking me somewhere else, and I wasn't going to get to be with him because I was out in this big place, It's scary, and he was kind of like my anchor, I thought. And to find out it was betrayal. I was totally betrayed by the friend that I thought I had out here. So, which was something it's kind of a thread through my story, like a lot of betrayal and a lot of hope that keeps me going, So, I ended up there thinking that it was going to be okay, but I was very afraid, but it got worse.
So for people that don't know, or that would say, why wouldn't she just walk out the front door and walk away?
Yeah. Well, I would have been homeless. I would have been on the streets and with no money. And it was before cell phones, so it's not like you could make a phone call. And literally penniless. So there wasn't anything I could do about that. I felt trapped, like I had no options.
Right. And that's, again, survival kicked in. Like, okay, what can I do to survive? How can I stay ahead of this game?
So I got to sleep with this guy. I don't want to, but if I want to have a place to sleep tonight and I need something to eat tomorrow, maybe, then I better stay put and do what I need to do.
Right. Wow. And that's how easy it is to fall into that world. And until you're in that situation, like I know a lot of people thinking like, well, I would go do this, I would go do, and it's not that easy.
No.
Especially, it's not your hometown. Like I said, it was before cell phones. It's not like you can just call somebody, pick you up. Like you're in it's like a new country.
It was I was from Georgia. I hadn't been anywhere ever. So this was, I had been on the road with the band and we had gone up to like Chicago and some places, New York, stuff like that. But I was in a safe environment. I was with people. So to come out here to be solely alone with no money, I wasn't that brave to just walk out the door and see what was going to happen.
Wow. Like this, your story can be broken down into a million pieces. What's the most valuable lesson that you've learned and all of that?
Good question. I think now in hindsight, I am stronger than I thought I was. I think that, after all of that, like I said, it would be easy to fall into like self-contempt, hating myself or thinking that I shoulda, coulda, woulda, all of those things. But I think just caring for myself and knowing that I'm a good person and not beating myself up about the things that have happened and realizing, I think that women who've been through things like this are some of the strongest women I know. They're not quitters. They're not weak. And they're very intelligent. And I love working with survivors. And I think working with them reminds me every day about myself and reminds me that I am strong.
I mean, you have to be strong to survive that. Like literally, I mean, to be in that world and survive every day. And what was it, 10 years for you?
11, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to survive that long every day, you have to be strong.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. And I don't think people realize how strong they are until they get put into certain situations. Yeah. And that's the real test. Like, I know a lot of people always, well, if I was in that situation, I'll do this, I'll do that.
Right.
You never know what you're going to do until you're in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would all love to say, oh, well, I would just do this, I would just do that, right? But it's not as easy as it's said. And you really, until you're put in a certain situation, you really don't know what you're going to do until you're in that situation.
Right.
Because that's when the true story comes out about your character, who you are, how strong you are.
Yeah, and the reason I say hope is because I wanted so badly for things to work out. So the next person that told me they were going to be my boyfriend, like the one guy who turns out to be a pimp, but came to see me. He groomed me really well. And I talk about that. I talk about grooming and how it really works. So, people can say I would do such and such, but if you weren't groomed, you probably wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. And so once you've been groomed, you have a different mindset. You've been taught what to think and what the best, next step would be.
So talk about that for a minute, because most people actually don't even have a clue what grooming is.
Yeah.
Like what does what is grooming?
So in my book, I talk about the one situation. I'll just go with that one. I was working in a club. And I had moved out here from Georgia, as I said. And so I was away from family, out here all alone. And a very handsome young man from another country started coming into the club to visit. And he met me, and he would sit in the back, not act like the rest of the customers. I'm talking about, I don't know if we've talked about what we're really talking about here. The title of the book. It's about surviving the commercial sex industry. And so I'm working in the sex industry. I'm working in a strip club in LA. And so this guy comes in, but he treats me different than any of the other clients that are coming in or customers that are coming in to the club. And he doesn't try to sit up front. He doesn't try to talk to all the girls. He's not being a player and all of that. He's got his game on. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Right.
He's hanging out in the back, being very chill, low key, so that when I get off stage, he's already talked to me and invited me to come over. But does it on a regular basis. It's not a one-time thing. So I begin to feel safe with him. And when he comes in, I'm excited to see him now, because he's not like everybody. This night is going terrible. I'm so sick of all these men just, groping and all of the comments and, all of the things that go with this industry. But this guy's different. It's like a breath of fresh air. He's coming in here to just kind of hang out and be a friend.
Right.
Well, and I mentioned that he's from another country because that was one of the things he used to talk to me about. He said, I know what it's like to be away from your family, to be all alone. And I'm out here like that too. Like, we can be that for each other, we have that in common. And so that was like sewing, imagine if you're stitching up a hole in something. That was the first thread. The first pass through. And then he had another one, and then he'd come back another day, you know, and now he'd bring me a nice little gift, some very expensive perfume that I couldn't really afford, you know, and just sort of seeing me, like, I see you, you're alone, you're beautiful, you're, you know, lonely and worthy of these gifts, and just really like letting me feel seen by him. Meeting, and some grooming is done, and if you know about Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, that's what grooming is. It's like going through the steps of the pyramid. And so, you know, you meet the, for some girls, it's going to be like in my first situation, just meeting the basic needs. I needed somewhere to sleep,
right,
and have a roof over my head. So it can go from the basic needs of getting food and shelter, all the way to making me feel like we're equal, that we're partners, and that we're actually going to accomplish something together. And so, you know, I wasn't at the place when I met him that I needed shelter, but I did need companionship. I did want someone to see that I didn't want to be here, and I wanted to get out. And so he started talking to me about that, how to get out. And so, you know, we would go on dates. He would eventually had a driver coming to pick me up, and even to drop me out back off at work, invited me to come and live with him, which I took him up on. Lived in a big, big house, beautiful house, and I was staying in and out of hotels, you know, making my money, buying my drugs, buying expensive things, and living in hotels. And he was offering me something that felt like family, living in a home with him, going out to dinner with him, having companionship. So that's how grooming can look.
Yeah.
It's not dark and scary. It was actually very comfortable and inviting.
It happens over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So like you said, it's not just a 1 night, 2 night thing. Like, this happened over time.
Yeah.
And he put you in that psychological safety space.
Yeah. Yeah. Until I ended up in a place where I could totally trust him. And then he began to pull things away little by little, you know? So now my security wasn't. I had given him all of it. I felt secure with him. But now he started to pull things away a little bit, like having the driver pick me up from work and then to collect my money. I'm gonna give this to him. You guys are saving, working. He had already talked to me about it. We're working together to start to save some money and do some other projects together. And so, you know, and then fear starts to come into it. Like, I'm gonna lose all this. I don't know how to, I don't want to lose him, and I don't know now how I will continue. I'm going to be afraid that he's going to get mad at me, which eventually he did. And then he started to beat me and move other girls into the house and start, you know, he had like a sex room and a whole lounge area, and part of the house he had created just for work for us. So it went from, you know, going out to eat amazing food from other countries that I'd never tasted before and introducing me to his culture, to now I'm black and blue and bleeding and being kicked out of a car on the side of the road, you know, just to get away.
It is, and we said this before, it is that easy to fall into it. And you can't even, and correct me if I'm wrong, but tell if someone's actually being genuine. Like, if someone really just wants to be there to help you and be your friend. Yeah. Can't even tell the difference between the two, or can you?
No. And I would say that is still, after all these years, probably something I struggle with. You know, and I want to say that and be really transparent, because I know that other survivors think that, you know, I'm tired of feeling this way. I want to trust somebody for a change. Right. And I've been there and I've done that and been betrayed again. And so it's so hard to begin to heal those areas and start to feel like I can trust myself to make a good decision and trust myself to be a good judge of character. And I just want to say, you are a good judge of character, survivors who are listening. You really have to read a room well. So trust yourself more than you do.
So at this point, is it is it hard to like be with someone now?
I would say there's always a part of me that's watching. Yeah,
Right.
I think anyone that knows me would probably agree with that.
But is it impossible or?
No, it's not impossible. It's and again, there's still hope that there's going to be a chance of having a good relationship or friendship that isn't going to turn. But that's what we grow from.
Right.
Those are the things that we grow from. And so again, going back to like valuing what part of somebody's journey you're in and you get to be with them.
I think for me, like, I can somewhat relate to that because I've been married twice, and like I'm in my final stages of my second divorce right now. Like it should be over like in the next few weeks. But after this last one, it was like, you know what? I'm never giving my all no more. I'm never giving her all this and doing all this for her. But then I had to think about that. Like, if I do that, is that fair to the next person? Because maybe this next person is the one.
Right.
But now I'm not giving her my authentic self.
Right.
So I struggle with that right now. Like, I want to be my authentic self, and I keep telling myself that. But there is that little fear that, dang, I don't want to get played again. Because my second marriage, I got played big time. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I got played. But, and it is nobody's fault of my own because I made all the decisions to do all this stuff, right? But I do, like, have that fear now. Like, if I meet somebody, like, dang, she gonna play me again.
Yeah.
Like, because it costs me a lot of money. And I don't.
And more than just that, there's a lot more costs that you're having to work through, you know? So I think that's why we have to keep working on our own, hearts and healing and not getting, hardened to the point where we aren't able to open up again, That's part of the journey too for us. It's for everyone, is like healing from the wounds and then getting back up again.
Right. Well, I think I have, and I've learned a lot, especially like I just graduated from a course, Applied Positive Psychology, which helped me a lot. I don't think without that course I would be the person I am today, which we never should be. Like, that was an 8-month course. So I'm not the same person I was a year ago.
Yeah.
And we never should be that. We should always be growing.
Right.
You should never be the same person you was last year. Like, there should be some type of growth. We all have different growths, but you should not be in the same place.
That's right.
So I think that helped me. I see things totally different now. I feel things totally different. But there is still that little fear in me of, not... I want to say trusting people, but it's more, I think for me, it's more of letting just toxic relationships into my space. Like, I feel like I'm in this great space right now, and I'm not allowing anyone to pull me out of it into their negative, toxic space.
Yeah.
Like, it'll take you a lot to do that now. And I was just having this conversation with Brenda earlier. It's not being selfish, and it's not me being an asshole. It's me being real and real to myself and true to myself. Like, if I don't want to be there for you, if I don't want to do anything, it's because I'm feeling something a certain way and I don't want to go into your toxic area. I'm staying in my safety space right here.
No, I get that. Totally. I think sometimes we can actually, like, if we have been in abusive situations, in some ways, if we aren't caring for ourselves, we actually become like abusive, like the abuser to ourselves.
Yes.
By saying yes to things that we shouldn't, and putting ourselves through things. It's not being kind to the things you have healed from, things you have been through. And I think that a lot of times I have to do that too, make decisions. Is this a kind thing? I'm always thinking about everyone else, but is this a kind thing for myself
Right.
at this moment?
And I had to learn that, like I'm about to be 53 next month. It literally just took me all these years to finally be kind to myself and do things for me first. Because if we're not taking care of ourselves first, how are we going to take care of everybody else?
Yeah.
Right? It's like the airplane story. Everybody knows that. Like, you have to put your oxygen on first.
Right.
I never did that. And I always wondered why I was always so angry and moody.
Yeah.
Because I was always emptying my cup for everybody else.
Yeah.
And my cup wasn't being filled. And
Yeah. And then I think that when you have been a person who has been abused, it becomes your norm. And so you don't know. And that's what I mean by you become the abuser to yourself by forcing yourself to do things that you shouldn't do. And I'm certainly not saying me first and don't care for others, because that is the opposite of my whole being and what I do. But I am learning that, there are places where I need to count too. So.
No, absolutely. And I echo that, because I tell people all the time, like, I'm still here for everybody. But there's now boundaries
Yes.
that I have. There's time limits. Like, I believe most people just want to be heard. That's why I like telling people story. I let them tell their story. I tell people all the time, you can call me. You can vent. I'll give you a time to vent. We're not going to vent every day. And I actually just went through this this scenario. I had a friend that's going through some things, and every day for, I'm not even joking, for like a month, I let her call me and vent, right? Finally, I was like, I stopped responding, because for me, it's not being productive.
Right.
If I continue to let you vent every day, it's like, we know the problem. I'll let you do that once or maybe even twice. Like, you can vent, tell me the problem, whatever. But once we know the problem, we don't need to talk about it no more. Like, we don't need to talk about the problem. We need to start talking about solutions and how to move forward.
And a lot of times that's looking at yourself.
Right.
Why are you interested or opening up to these types of behavior, people's behavior? So usually that goes back to us.
Yes.
So we can talk all day about everybody else, but probably some of the issues that are happening need to come back home. Need to deal with some stuff.
Yeah. And I even questioned myself. I said, I allowed this for so long.
Yeah.
But we need to start talking about the solution here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it. So what else in surviving the commercial sex industry?
I think...
What are some things that women need to look for?
I think that they will find, in reading this book, their own story. I think they will find parts of their own story. Whether you've been in the industry, the sex industry at all, I think you will still find places in this book that can make you go a little deeper in your own story and your own wounds. I think that's what I hope for out of this. Also, I'm not just leaving people there like in all the things that were wrong. At the end, I speak a little bit about where I'm at now and starting Cherish, and even the challenges that brought on, after being in that kind of life, and what it's like to step out into, like for me, my calling of helping. I knew this was what I needed to do, but there have been a lot of challenges, to do that. And so having to navigate through those challenges, and I talk a little bit about that toward the end, and how other women are coming out and finding who they are and finding their purpose. And that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal, is for others to find their own healing. I too went through a lot of certificates and training in trauma, narrative-focused trauma care, which is going back into your story. And like you were talking about the family, the I and the we, another way of saying that is like your family of origin and the role that you played in that. And so we do a lot of going back into parts of our story that sort of follow us, and it's how we interact with the world. And so we need to go back into some of those places, like I was talking about with your friend, finding out where some of those wounds are, that why we keep going back to that, you know. So I think what I want for people to get out of this book is to be curious about their own growth and their own healing. So I did some story work myself. I've done a lot of trainings, gone into some deep places that helped me with writing my story even, and went through the Allender School, which is the Allender Center, which is part of the Seattle School of Theology and Psychology in Seattle, and that helped me a lot. I did a lot of online work after that, and so that's one of the things I do with the residents in our program is I do a lot of story work, and I wrote the book in the way that we can use it as a tool to get into more story work. Because it's hard to go into some of those dark stories, you know?
It is. I remember the first time I went to therapy, and it's funny because my first wife, I was married for 25 years with my first wife, and me and her is like still good friends, very good friends, and it's who I have my two kids with. And for those 25 years, not for the whole 25 years, but she used to tell me a lot, I need to go to therapy. I was like, no, I don't. You know, I denied her, like, right? But she did tell me for years.
Yeah.
And this is when, like, I know I had an anger problem. Like, I used to get mad. I was just moody, which is crazy because I actually had a great life.
Yeah.
Like, in hindsight, now that I look at it, I'm like, why was I so mad? Like, honestly, with my first wife, like, we had a great life. Like, I was successful. I was doing what I wanted to do. I don't know why I was moody, to be honest with you. But she was always telling me, you need to go to therapy. You need to go to therapy. And I ignored her. It wasn't until I got remarried and it took my second wife one time to look at me. I don't know what it was. She was like, you need to go to therapy. And when she said it, I was like, I gave her the same response. I said, no, I don't. I said, but I'm going to go to prove you wrong and to prove my first wife wrong, because since you brought it up, I said, I'm going to go. So I really went to prove them wrong, right? To prove a point.
How'd that work out for you?
It didn't work out. Well, I mean, it did work out, right? Because I got something out. Like,
Right.
I went to that first therapy session, and I was so excited when I came out. Like, I called her. I was like, wow, this is so great. Like, even though it was a little traumatizing, you know, because I went for, I went for a whole year, twice a month for a whole year. And he brought up so much stuff that I thought I buried. I was like, you know, because first thing he asked me about my childhood. I'm like, told him about my childhood, and he started picking, and he was like, okay, this is where it's coming from. I was like, no, it's not. I was like, I don't even think about that. Like, no, it kind of is. So we started doing, like, you know, these works and activities and stuff. And I realized that, yeah, because I never addressed it. I just kind of like threw it in the back.
Right.
And he used to have this phrase, and I forgot what it was. Something about buried something doesn't die alive or something. Something I got to write him and ask him what it was. But whenever you bury something, like it is not dead.
Right.
Because those emotions and feelings are still alive.
You're still reactive from it. You're still responding from it.
Right.
And the pain.
And the one thing that I learned from him as well is when you hold things in, the longer you hold it in, like at some point there's going to be an explosion. And the longer you hold it in, the bigger the explosion.
Yeah.
And I've seen that over my lifetime.
Yeah.
I've seen at the points where I used to explode, and that's because I was holding things in and just didn't talk about it. And now I see it in other people. Like, for instance, the Will Smith slap. That was an explosion.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like, it had nothing to do with the joke.
Right.
That was his explosion.
Right.
He was holding so much stuff in from his marriage and Jada and their whole thing. That was his explosion that night. But that's how it happens. Like, people think they can just hold things in.
Right.
And yeah, we could for a long time, but there's going to be an explosion.
Yeah. Well, it's toxic in your body. There's a great book called The Body Keeps Score, and it talks
Right.
about your body holding the trauma and how that manifests and, comes out. But so one of the mentors that I have been trained under said, you can only take people as far as you've been yourself. And so for me, working with survivors, if I haven't done the work on my own trauma and healing, I'm not going to be able to take them very far.
Right. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So with your work now, that what you do with all these women, you're still working.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure every
My
story
stuff is
is
still
different.
coming up.
Right, because you're hearing these different stories and experiences, so it's bringing back.
Yeah.
Are there other triggers for you?
Oh, yeah. But it's not always their stories. It's my own story that's still living, that sometimes, things will come up and I'll recognize, like, oh, there's something I haven't really understood that was a part of, like that was underneath it all, and
Right.
that I need to work on that. Maybe that'll come up and I'll go, okay, there's a new piece I haven't addressed. And so it's another piece of the puzzle. And as I put that all together, it's becoming more whole, I think that it really helps for me to be able to name certain things, because we, always want to kind of cover things up and just make it like, oh, it's the past, it's fine, leave it alone. But sometimes going back through, that's why it's called narrative work. It's the story. If you go back in and name parts of your story true, like for an example, if a girl was molested as a child by a family member, she grows up having a lot of self-hatred and feeling dirty and feeling like she's the problem. Rather than naming that she may have been drawn to that person in the family because they actually paid more attention to her and saw her, which is also good and bad. It's bad because they were watching, and as predators know their prey and they know what to look for. So yeah, they were watching, but what they saw was maybe a little girl who had a lot of life and desired to be loved, not in an abusive way and not certainly at an appropriate way, but that was, tainted, and that was damaged. And so instead she grows up feeling this is her fault, rather than it being named that was the goodness of you, was having desire to be loved and wanting. There's nothing wrong with that. We all want that. We all want our family to care about us and love us. Unfortunately, that attention came from the wrong person and in the wrong way. And so being able to redirect some of that self-contempt, like lift that off and say, where does that really belong? Not that we want to, say you should hate this person or whatever, because we want to get to a place where one day we can have forgiveness, but that's not always, definitely not the first step.
Right.
And that's a long road to
Right.
get there.
Right.
But they can, at least by naming, like, I can stop hating myself for this thing right now. That's step one. And then move on to finding out, like, naming, this was what was done to you was wrong. It wasn't your fault. And just saying it wasn't your fault isn't a solution. I hate when people do that. We need to get to the bottom of it and be able to say, and I think naming the goodness of the person, like, I, as a little girl, desired to be someone to see me. And not like, oh, she needs attention, but like, see the things that I love, see who I am, tell me who I am. That's what I didn't have, a dad who wasn't there. So I didn't have that person telling me who I was in a good way. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But you say I just want to touch on this real quick. You say you hate when people say it's not your fault.
Yeah, because it's not enough. It's just like, so we're putting like a little Band-Aid on something that's gushing, and that Band-Aid isn't going to hold, and it's not really helpful.
Right.
Because they can't hear it or believe it. until they've gotten down to the bottom of it. Like, what did you desire? Who were you in that moment? What was it that drew this person to you? And naming those good things about, like, this little girl was brought, every time she walked in the room became alive because of her energy. And that perpetrator saw that, you know.
I like that. It reminds me of positive psychology. What I just learned because we talk about instead of focusing on the problem, like I was just saying earlier, it's more about like if you're having a bad day, right? We don't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're having a bad day." We say, "Oh, but what actually went well today?" Like what was the brightness of your week? Like we start focusing on the positive. So I like that.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That makes sense. I never thought of it that way. Very good point. So what else? What's next for you? You ever been?
Yeah. So I'm having a book launch, and in conjunction with that, because I can't just do one thing, I have created an exhibit, an art exhibit. We've been working on it for years. We started out with one exhibit that I created a few years ago called A Walk in Her Shoes, and it's 13 podiums, like white podiums that you'd see in an art gallery, with one shoe on it, and it's a 3-minute version of the girl's story that wore the shoe. So that's called, and you listen to it. It's a QR code. You scan it, and you can hear her voice telling a 3-minute version of her, where she was and where she is now, kind of story. And so that's called A Walk in Her Shoes. That's one of them. That's going to be at this book launch. And then we've created a couple of other ones that also, if you read the book, you'll recognize some of the exhibits that are going to be there, because I talk about the bird cage, and that's going to be one of them. And the birds.
By the way, do you still have your bird cage?
I have 2 giant bird cages that I had created that will be at this art exhibit.
And the doors are still open?
No, yeah, the doors are still open, but no, I don't have those old bird cages anymore. I got rid of all those. Yeah.
All those? Okay.
Yeah.
But I love that story
Yeah,
in
I
your
know.
book. And it got to me when you said where you finally let them go.
Yeah.
And then the one bird flew on your lap.
Yeah.
Like that was a moment.
Yeah.
I love that part.
Because we have been through a lot of moments. Mm-hmm.
But that was a great story. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so I'm having a book launch, but instead of just a book launch, it's going to be an art exhibit of 20 other survivor stories will be there besides mine, and shown in different ways, like through the shoes. And we are creating this called the Exposed Immersive. And hopefully this is going to travel after this. So we want it to go to different cities and be something that will help educate people about domestic human trafficking, but also help them see the victory that the women have come through, you know?
I love it. I can't wait.
Yeah. You're going to be there?
I know.
Cool.
I can't wait to be there. I can't wait to listen to those stories. I mean, I think that's very powerful.
Yeah.
And then we also talked about you doing a podcast.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that.
Okay, because I have some great people I want to interview, more survivors, and even someone who was a pimp who's now doing some incredible work himself in the San Diego area. And I think that it will be really interesting to hear different perspectives of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think these conversations, like all other, conversations, especially like in the mental health field, need to be normalized.
Yeah.
Because like we was talking about earlier, it's so easy to get caught up in these worlds. But I think the more we talk about it and tell these stories, especially the survivor stories, the better we are going to be to hopefully one day shutting all of it down.
Yeah. Or making people more aware that when it's beginning to happen, they'll have the signs,
Right.
the tools to know what to do.
Right. And so, just speaking of that real quick, what are some of the signs that to look for?
I think we can go back to the grooming conversation. Like, there's a lot of maybe young girls right now. It's happening on campuses at school. These guys are, like I said, perpetrators or predators. Can see the need. They see the person who has need. They know how to read them well. And so these young girls and young boys, can be victims really easily if someone isn't watching for them, or if they don't know how to watch out for themselves. I think, right now we're in such a social media frenzy in our world, that everyone has FOMO. Everyone is trying to keep up or wants something that they don't have. And I think that is a huge trap, if we're not careful, to set us up to be victimized. And I think, wanting that next picture to look better, or, that's where you get into trouble. And I also want to say, these people think, well, I deleted some of those pictures. It's like they aren't really gone. The dark web is a real thing, and the pictures are there. So you need to be so careful with what you do with your phone.
And I want to add on top of that because you just mentioned FOMO, fear of missing out. For those that don't know what that means, it's a huge thing with people. They feel like, oh, this is my chance, this is my opportunity. And it's like, no, listen, everybody opportunity will come when it's supposed to. Don't force it.
Yeah.
Don't if it doesn't feel right. If you feel in FOMO, then it's wrong. It'll come when it's supposed to.
Yeah, because we usually react. We do something we shouldn't do
Right.
when we're having that feeling. Yeah.
Right, and that's a big indicator right there that it's just not your time. Your time will come, and it may be a few years, maybe 5 years, 10 years, but your time will come. And going back to what we talked about earlier, because if you forcing it, then you're paying what, again, going back to how much is your life worth?
Yeah.
At what cost are you going to do this for?
You usually can't tell how far it's going to go either on that
can't.
front end.
You can't. And you can get sucked. It's like the rabbit hole. You're going to go fall down that rabbit hole so quickly.
Yeah.
So just be careful with that. I'm a true believer in, everybody has their time. You just have to be patient. Patience is so key in trying to do what you want. I believe, like, you want it to be an entertainment, right? But I think you still are. Look, you just wrote a book.
Yeah.
You're going to do your podcast.
Yeah.
It's just not in the way you thought it would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So yes, it was your dream, but, you had to go through some things, and it just looks different.
Yeah.
Same with me. Like, I thought, my entertainment was always going to be in TV, which that's where I started. But I mean, look at it. It's not. But it's still entertainment.
And it's not over.
And it's not over.
You don't know what's coming. So.
Right. So yeah. Well, what would you? I need a mic drop from you now.
Oh, great! I'm not prepared.
No one's ever prepared. But that's what makes these mic drops beautiful and meaningful, because it's coming from your heart. It's not supposed to be scripted. But what would you tell the young women out there?
I would tell them, you are enough. You are beautiful. You have everything that you need to have right now to be all that you were created to be. You have a purpose, and I would say never stop hoping and dreaming about that. But, don't react. Don't get out there. Don't let your emotions take you away. And like we were talking about the FOMO, just be really, have good people around you, have a good support system around you that's got your back, that want the best for you. And if you don't have those people, call me.
Absolutely. I want to leave it with, similar to what I talked about on last week's show, is in a couple of days, we're going to have a new year. And everybody, just as they do every year, well, I'm going to do this for this year. I'm not going to do this. It's a new me, new year, right? know that everybody was born with a gift. Your time will come, as I just said a minute ago. Your time will come, but you have to be patient. Take small steps. Don't take big, giant steps, again, because the smaller steps make the biggest impact.
Yep.
Because when you take these big steps and then your expectations now are big, and if you don't make that leap because you're taking a big step, then you get discouraged. You feel like you're failing. You feel like it's not going to happen. Well, that means you need to scale back on your steps. Like, it's real easy to fall into discouragement because your visions, not your vision, but your expectations are too big. It's great to have big visions, but again, smaller steps.
Totally. You know, this book took me over 20 years to write.
Exactly.
So, and I was mad about that. I wanted it to be done.
Right.
But there was a lot of healing that had to happen through each chapter, and then I would go back and rewrite it and edit and rewrite. And I'm so thankful that it didn't come out sooner than this, because it's for such a time as this. This is the moment that this was supposed to happen, not
right.
before this. And so if I had, rushed it, which I could have done, but when I started to slow down and take it easy and let things fall into place the way they were supposed to, it's turned out just how it should.
As it should, right. And it's coming out when it's supposed to.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on a book, and I've been working on it for 3 years now.
Yeah.
And I'm in no rush to put it out.
Yeah.
It's going to come out when it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
I can easily go write this book over the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
but I know it's not going to be the book that I want
Right.
at the end of the day.
That's right.
So again, you have to be patient. Your time will come, your healing will come, but you have to walk your journey.
Yeah. It's all good. The lessons are all good and worth it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Kate, so much
Thanks for having me.
Anytime.
Yeah.
I feel like I need you back on here to get deeper into these conversations because, and I know you're going to do it on your show, because there is so much to dive into with this world.
Yeah. Let's talk some more.
Yeah. So definitely come back anytime whenever you're ready. And, I'm looking forward to your show and I'm looking forward to your event. When is your event?
January 20th. And if you are interested in coming to that, you can go to our cherished website, which is cherishedla.org. And there's a place on there to look at the tickets for that and to get more information about that event. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a live podcast going on.
Yes, we are.
And some other cool stuff happening. And it's going to be a fun celebration night because it's been a long road to get here.
Yes. It'll be great.
So January 20th.
January 20th, y'all. Mark your calendars. Well, thank you again. I truly appreciate you. Truly appreciate what you're doing with all the young ladies out here and the survivors. It's just such a great thing. And your foundation, is it
Cherished LA?
Cherished LA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We make organic bath and body products. We have a social enterprise that we're putting our products in different stores, and we have an Etsy store, and everything is made by survivors that come here to learn.
Like that.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're teaching them entrepreneurship as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that. Cool. All right. We're out of here.
Okay.
Thank you.
See ya.